Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tornado Tiny Pentacle.
And Psychic Tom Paget with his crystal ball unveiled.
All right. And, boy, Tom, our crystal ball for the both of us predicting Pereira last week was looking murky until the end. But,
Wow.
it's another Leon Edwards situation.
Wow. You know, Tony, to put this into boxing terms, picture Ollie and Foreman. And Ollie is winning the fight. He's piling up points. Foreman has had his moments, but Foreman's gassed. Ollie's in charge. Last round, and all of a sudden, Foreman lands the bomb. Wow.
That's like Tate Weaver.
Yeah, right. Only that wasn't. Yeah, that's a good point. But that wasn't a stylish clash. I mean, Mike Weaver was kind of a banger. Also, he wasn't really. I mean, this was a total. Asanya's momentarily, you know, a good movement, snaps the punches in, speed, reflexes, talent, and it was working good until it wasn't. But again, with a guy with that kind of power, you can't stand in front of him.
Yeah, well, the craziest thing for me,
interesting time
watching that fight, Pereira and Adesanya. First, you got to remember that Pereira has beaten Adesanya twice. I thought it was just once, but it was twice in kickboxing. And so Adesanya is the old dog in the new sport for Pereira now. He thought he was going to get revenge. And I think one of the best lines out of Adesanya after the loss was, "I hate that motherfucker." They got him on tape saying that. Like before they got together and raised the other guy's hand. But for 4 rounds, it was almost an absolute open and shut case for Adesanya. And Pereira just looked like a zombie in there. He looked like he totally forgot how to.
Well, I had him winning the second round. I had it 3-1,
yeah.
But I still say he needed that knockout.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I think the other judges agreed. I think it was pretty easy to score.
You could have given him a
round. Off the board,
easy.
3-1.
But the thing was, the entire fight, Pereira was throwing one punch at a time, and he was waiting so patiently for that perfect shot that he definitely did forget about the fact that combos are the most effective way to get knockouts. Like, you know, he was just basically frustrating Izzy enough to keep him at bay and to actually force some wrestling out of Izzy, which was probably his best moment of the fight. But then Izzy just forgot about that advantage and just, you know, went on trying to strike with him. And that 5th round, between the 4th and 5th round, it reminded me a lot of Leon Edwards, who was coincidentally named Rocky as his nickname. Because the speech between rounds, I mean, was reminiscent of Mickey from the Rocky series. But he basically just said to him, "You have 1 round to be champion." One trainer said this to him. I don't even know what the guy's name was. Said to Pereira, he was...
that was Glover Teixeira.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was Glover.
Was it Glover?
Yeah.
So,
Yes,
Tony,
sir.
Basically, you know, this guy's dragging
ass.
ass.
I heard it. He was in his corner.
He had one end of a round where he was literally out on his feet, and he was saved by the bell, Pereira. And then he goes into the
That was
last
the first round. That was round 1. I mean...
Yeah. So, he goes into the 4th round, down on the scorecards, obviously. And his trainer says to him, "You have 1 round to be champion. You need to throw combos. Okay? And you need to get the knockout." And it's like, how the fuck did Glover Teixeira let him go 4 rounds without telling him he needs to throw combos? Like, hindsight being 2020, I was like, really? How does this happen? Because after that advice that he followed to a T, he made it look like child's play. And there was some bitches out there saying that Adesanya was still reacting and bobbing and weaving. 15 seconds is all I would have given him after that, okay? That movement would have bought him 15 seconds if I was the referee, but, you know, that's going to be him on the ground as opposed to him walking away on his feet, which, I mean, you should be able to do as a champion. The ref should give you that much respect, that if he sees that you're going to get face planted, he's going to help you out. And, Adesanya didn't really complain about it either. So, I mean, he did at the time, instantly. But,
I'll tell you what. His post-fight press conference, I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was, a great sportsman. They had a lot of words. That was kind of a grudge fight, but he was a first-class gentleman, very magnanimous and, optimistic, said, hey, I'll catch him next time. But it's got to be a nightmare for him because this is a replay of that second kickboxing fight. This is a nightmare. How does lightning strike twice like that?
The latest meme trend out there is, Pereira following Adesanya into whatever sport he decides to take up next. It's hilarious.
Well, let's see what's left boxing. I guess Adesanya could just put the gloves on and then we'll see if he follows it. Classic.
This is a real fucking sore spot for Adesanya. But I think with the right strategy, Adesanya could definitely beat him. But I mean, the big story is that it was like 6 fights in professional MMA, and he's the UFC champion. So I mean, for all those people out there who think it can't be done, this guy did it in 6 fights as a professional. Some people are just really natural.
Well,
and the only thing is,
however,
how much is it going to be able to sustain him if he keeps fighting that way? Because that was a very sloppy fight on his part. He has to button some things up. Number one is defense.
Well,
his defense is horrible.
And then again, what great wrestler has he fought? That's going to be his Achilles heel.
Oh, he's horrible.
He says he's a brown belt and beat
horrible.
JJ, but I don't know. Maybe he is, but he's going to have trouble.
Yeah, he needs a lot of help. But on the feet, his defense was just really, really bad. Really, the only thing that saved him was he's got long legs to move around the ring. But, he never really had that tight hands-up defense unless he was absolutely getting clobbered, which was only really a couple times in the fight where he looked in danger of going down. But, I mean, there was a lot of rounds where he was just kind of walking around like a zombie. And his hands were way out. It's just like, unless you're just constantly kicking a guy, your hands don't need to be way out for balance. You've got to protect your face because that's where he's going to hit you on the chin or the temple and you're going night-night. So, I don't know. I think that's a Muay Thai boxing thing, where they like to keep their hands out, for throwing crazy elbows and big knees. But in MMA, it can be very dangerous, especially with a smart guy like Izzy.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, we'll see how he adjusts between now and the next fight. But that was one of the quickest title runs ever. Who was the quickest ever, though? Do we know? You know, Tom, did you pay attention to that part of the show? That was after
the quickest title run.
In the UFC.
Quickest title. Well, if this goes way back to the early days.
No. Modern day UFC.
Okay, because I was going to go back to UFC 3 on that one if you wanted, but Steve Jenham, the way he got it. But okay, well, I just can't think right now. Who?
Brock Lesnar. He got 4.
He defended the title once.
Oh, he got it. He got the title in 4 fights, I believe. I only know this because they were talking about it after the fight.
Oh.
They had their statisticians.
Well, I thought you meant like this. You say the shortest time to get it, not keep it, correct?
Yeah. Shortest time to get it as a professional MMA fighter. Like, shortest amount of fights.
Brock was in the UFC after his first MMA fight.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah, the only guy I've ever seen fight in the UFC in his first MMA fight was a guy that was just on a card and ended up in an ambulance after round 1. third UFC fight. All three of them in the UFC. And like he was like 1 and 2 or something like that. I don't know how that happened. So you got to know somebody. I was talking about that a few weeks ago. It's just like, why is this guy getting this opportunity? He has nothing to show for himself. I don't know. I guess he needed a short thing bet. But anyway, we have actually a lot of leftovers. You know, it's Thanksgiving season, so you got to eat your leftovers. And there were some stories last week.
And let's remember, Rich, we had a lot of boxing action in Cleveland. The
Yes.
main event was WWE like.
WWE.
I watched it. So
I saw on the Box Rec thing. I didn't even read an article about
astonishing.
it. I saw on the Box Rec page that the guy in the main event got disqualified because he threw his opponent over the top rope. Thought he was in the Royal Rumble, I suppose.
Right. It was Montana Love. Now, I have a personal connection there that one of my close buddies, who was, I'll have to send you a video of him. He was undefeated as a middleweight. He was 8-0, but then things came up and his career kind of got sidetracked. But he still is a hanger-on in the gym, and he knew Montana Love. And this was a fight, I think Love was kind of looking past his opponent. And early on in the second round, Love got dropped. And I'm trying to watch, at the same time, talk about torture. I'm trying to watch Chandler and
What a fight. We got to talk about that.
and Dustin Poirier. I've got two different screens of, oh, man. But that fight just kept going, and it was not going, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but it was not going Love's way, and then it was a big headbutt. And the referee had said to him, look, we may have to stop this. And so Love just bum rushed. I can't even remember his opponent's name, but Love bum rushed him. And just over the top rope. And the Australian guy landed on his feet somehow.
Yeah.
He landed on his butt on the side of the ring, and landed on his feet, and he knew there was a disqualification. He came back in. And then it was just a big argument with the referee. It was a circus. Typical Cleveland. We've got that reputation.
So you're saying it was like a Royal Rumble?
Yeah, exactly. And then at the when the referee was talking to Love, he says, "Well, you know, the guy was hitting me with elbows and all that." Well, that's no excuse for doing what you did.
Right.
I mean, I understand you're frustrated. If you're getting fouled in a fight, well, you respond in kind. You don't pick someone up. It's just boom.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. And my buddy he didn't have dozens, so he was calling me about it. And I said, and then our phone got cut off at the time. God, over the ropes! Wow. So what a circus.
Yeah.
What is that? Boxing's the theater of the unexpected. You never
The Rocket
know.
Mortgage Fieldhouse
Right.
was where that went down, and the opponent was
Yes.
Steve Spark. How about that for a name? He sparked up some
Spark.
controversy. It was for a little title too. The
Yeah, and
WBA.
Sparks had only lost one fight, and that was to Zoo. I always think of his dad's first name. I can't think of his name, but he only lost one. Yeah, and he'd only
everything Tim.
right, and he'd only lost to him, and I'm telling you, I just think Love was looking past him,
Yeah,
and you
it was-
can't do that. So he's going to have to reset his career for sure.
And then the Yomar.
Pretty good card though. They had some good fights on the undercard.
Yomar Alamo.
Yeah, I didn't get to see really much.
Got beat by
I got-
Richardson Hitchens.
I got up Saturday morning at 3 a.m. and I was out of my house by 4 a.m. I made a normally 50-some minute ride in 32 minutes because there was no traffic. And then, getting the LD adrenaline, doing the whole run and all that. Then by the time I got home and I was doing this and doing that, I was like, I'm going to watch some fights and I'm going to try. I said, I'm likely going to be seeing the inside of my eyelids. And I was correct.
Did you
Well,
meet
what was
any?
the deal, Tony?
Did you meet any Mickeys at the run that gave you a nice little pep talk before you went out there and did the thing?
Well, Tom, see, the run is at the Art Museum in Center City, which is close to where my home office is, which thankfully I never have to go to. For me to get there, you figure I don't like to drive down to the city. I hate doing that. Plus with parking and all that stuff, I figure I'll take the train. The train only drops you off about a half mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile away. So the trains close to where I live, the closest train station, they don't start leaving on Saturdays until 6 a.m.
Okay.
The race starts at 7, and it's an hour-long train ride. So the trains that run out of where the town where I grew up, right outside of Philadelphia, on Saturdays, they start running at like 4 something. So I got up at 3. That gave me enough time to stretch, because I've been going through a lot of back and sciatica issues for the last really few months. Old boxing injury from 1995. I hit this big Polish Slovakian kid so hard in a sparring session, I hurt my back. And I don't know if I pulled something, tore something, strained something, broke something. I don't know. It was
Was it on a hook?
And every so often, it spasms and it flares up. And it actually happened to me at a Phillies game back in July. It was 100 degrees. I was standing up, and I was wearing the outfit, and I could feel the back was tightening up. I couldn't run for 10 days. And then I started getting back into it. Then I'm at another game, and I could feel it again flaring up. So I started, like, stretching. One girl that I know works at a local coffee shop I go to. She studies anatomy. She's in college. And we were talking. I said, yeah, I've been having back and sciatic issues. She goes, have you been stretching your hamstrings? She goes, because everything is connected through your hamstrings. And I started doing that, and it started easing just a little bit, because the Friday before Halloween, 2 weeks before race time, I was doing the Michael Myers 5K. And I go to the gym that morning. I said, okay, I'm going to do a quick run at the gym, jump some rope, shadow box, and I'm going to go home and I'm going to run this virtual 5K around my neighborhood. Get to the gym. I do the first round of jumping rope. It felt like my right leg weighed 700 pounds. I couldn't lift it. I said, okay, let me just stretch and I'll warm up and I'll do some shadow boxing. And I couldn't push off my back leg. I said, okay, I'm going to be all right. I said, maybe I haven't warmed up yet. I get on that treadmill. I put it on. 3 minutes and 46 seconds later, I was getting off, because it looked like I was a 90-year-old man trying to run.
Uh-huh.
It was like I couldn't feel my legs. It was like they were going numb from the sciatic.
Oh, yeah.
It was just shooting down. It felt like it was like a thunderbolt going off like every step. So I said, shit, I was supposed to run that 5K that day. And I said, I can't. I said, I know my limitations, and I know sometimes I try to push through things when I should. And I said, this time I'm going to be smart. And I went home, and I stretched, and I stretched, and I stretched, and I walked a little bit, and I stretched. And I was able to run the 5K 2 days later. And I felt it for a few days. I said, oh, boy, this is not going to be good. The Rocky runs in like 12 days. And this girl's like, no, you got to stretch your hamstring. So I got up 3 in the morning, and I stretched, and I stretched, and I was on my back, and I was pulling my knees to my chest, and I was putting my right leg over my left leg, and I was doing DDP yoga poses, the broken table, and the down dog.
Yeah,
and
I was just going to say,
and I feel some relief.
When you first mentioned it, I was like, don't you do DDP yoga? Because there are basically that's 6 or 7 stretches that you can do to get rid of sciatica.
Yeah, and that's what I was doing.
But there's the other thing is exercise.
So I did that from about...
It's weird. Those are the 2 things that cure sciatica, is stretching and exercise.
Well, I did the stretching from about 3 to 3:30. Went up to the bathroom, did all that, brushed my teeth and all that. Then I started suiting up, probably around 3:45, 3:50. That's when I started putting like the socks on with the laces through them to look like boots. I started, putting the shorts on. So I started doing all that, and then left my house at 4:07. Got to the train station, 32 minutes. Jumped on the 4:54 train, which dropped me off in Center City at 5:24. So last year I had gotten a 5:15 train, but I walked out the wrong exit when I got to the train station in the city, and then that caused a delay. By the time I got there and got my packet, got my costume on, they're like, you have to get in line. I said, but I haven't even stretched yet. I haven't even warmed up. They're like, dude, people are getting in line. You got to go. Shit. So this year I wasn't going to make that mistake again. So I got there early. I was the first one to get my packet. Got in my outfit. Then I started, and then you know what? The showman in me starts going off. Because people were coming up for photos, and I'm doing every one of them. And I'm doing photos with the skyline in the background. And I'm doing with the Paulie guy who's a friend of mine that I met down there. And I'm doing all these photos, and I'm like, you numbnuts, you better start warming up. So then I did my warm up, and of course I started walking the line and stopped for a photo with a random golden retriever, which is third year in a row. And then I get into the line, and I'm talking to people, and back's feeling pretty good. So now, the first year I did the run in 2019, and I've well documented, when I was 20 years old, 21 years old, 175 pounds, I wasn't much of a runner. Wasn't much of a runner. I would do my 3 to 4 miles a day training for fights, and I hated every step of it. You know, if they had me run with other guys on the team, generally they were leaving me in the dust. I wasn't a runner. Never was, never will be. Now, at 46 years old and over 200 pounds, I'm definitely not much of a runner. Well, the first year I did it, you know, I had the Rocky robe on and the black and gold trunks and all that, and I went and I kept a consistent 11-minute mile pace. And I did the run in 34 minutes. So this year, last year, I'm doing the Thunderlift outfit, which, like I said, it's not heavy, but it's restrictive. And the belt's kind of heavy, and the hat's awkward and all that, but I'm going to do it anyway because, you know, it's the showmanship. And about a mile into it, I was like, this cape, or not cape, but this muscle suit is restricting my breathing. I'm having a hard time getting air in my lungs, and I could really start to fatigue. So I said, okay, back to a walk, catch your breath, and then run hard for as long as you can. Then back it off to a walk and then run hard. And I added about 1 minute and change to my time from the year before. If I did it in like 34 something the first year, I did it in 35 something last year. So this year I said, okay, I'm going to train it a little bit different to, you know, be prepared for this. Well, the one thing that I think threw me off a little bit was the back and sciatica, you know, because I got into it, and that first mile and a half, I'm feeling good. You know, my hat blew off at one point, so I'm carrying that, which got to be a little bit awkward, and the belt was getting heavy, but I'm feeling good, right? And I hit that mile and a half point turnaround, and I remember saying to everybody, we're halfway through, everybody. We're halfway there. It's all downhill from here. And I'm like, I was pumping myself up, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I was feeling pretty good for about the next half mile. And then next thing you know, I had nothing left. It was going. My back was flaring up. The sciatic was flaring up. The belt was heavy. It was getting awkward. And I said, okay, do what you did last year. Back to a walk, get your breath, and then go hard. So I back to a walk for, you know, about 50, 75 yards, 100 yards maybe. And I went to go hard, and I didn't have it. But I pushed as hard as I could. And I'm back to a walk again, maybe for 100, 200 yards. Suck it up, go again. But I could not get the burst that I wanted to. I just couldn't get it like I did last year. It felt like I was running in quicksand, you know, by that point. And I think it was, like I said, my back just wasn't reacting the way I wanted it to. My sciatica I didn't get the chance to prepare them and strengthen them as much as I wanted to. But for the last 200 yards,
I mean, I had it when I first
finish line.
Had it nagging me, and it first like buckled me over. I had it for literally like years before I finally got rid of it. And you know the stretch is working when you feel like the tips of your toes tingling. But
yes.
It's all about
yes,
the nerve.
I agree.
It's all about the nerve, and like you get that stretch, you gotta just keep doing it, and even if it's painful, because that's the only thing that's gonna make it go away. From my experience, but yeah, I'm knock on wood, I haven't had it. It's mostly from bending over, from what I've noticed, like with a chainsaw for me, and also, you know, like I don't even get the carpal tunnel anymore from the chainsaw because I don't use it enough every day. I'm, you know, not doing too much logging, but back in the day when I was doing it, I would get this, not only the sciatica, but the carpal tunnel too, and like I'd be sleeping at night, and I'd wake up with both of my hands numb. But yeah, I can recognize the symptom of the leg going numb. But for me, mostly it was like just my big toe would go numb. And it started out when I was bouncing, not really bouncing, but like, you know, working at a bar, like doing the head counts and, you know, busy bar down the Cape that was a restaurant. So you'd take people's names and stuff, and all that jazz, and take the trash out, bring the beer in. I was a multi-purpose guy, and I did landscaping during the day, so 8-hour shift at night, basically standing there most of the night, and like being on my feet all day landscaping. Both my big toes went numb from just standing up for most of the day, and it still bothers me to this day. Every now and then I'll be like, why is my toes numb? But it doesn't always come with the sciatica. It's just one of those things. But yeah, I get you. It's definitely a pain. It's not literally a pain in the ass, but it's close.
You know what, Rich, I'm saying, when you were saying, like, when you do the stretching and if it hurts, you just got to keep pushing through it.
Yeah.
That day I was telling you at the gym, after I had to get off the treadmill in 3 minutes and 46 seconds, I got off, and like I said, I went in the one room and I laid one of his mats on the floor, and I started doing a lot of the DDP stretches. And the one that I was doing, he always does it as his cool down. It's like, it's like you pull your knees back to your chest, and then he goes, then you do not like an arch, but like you're on your back and you thrust your hips towards the sky,
Yeah.
You know, and then you pull your knees back in, and then it's bridge. He's like, do a bridge. Then you pull your knees back in. Then he's like, drop your spread your arms out like wings, drop your legs to your left, and put your left leg on your right knee, and like pull your knee down, and that's a hip stretch. I did that at one point. I was like, oh my god. Then I did the one where I like sat down and I tried to put my right leg over my left leg. I think the whole gym heard me scream. I think the whole town heard me scream because it was like a lightning bolt shot down my leg, and it was like, but it helped. It helped because you figure 2 days later I'm running a 5.
There's one too where you sit on the edge of a bed and you put your foot up against the wall, and you force your ball of your foot into the wall, and oh man, that one really works good. I'm doing it right now. It feels good. No, but yeah, there's a few of them that are very simple, but you'd be surprised how well they work. And then one that really worked for me in the beginning when I first started trying to stretch it out, and it was taking a while, was where you just basically lie on your back first, and then you kick your right leg over your left, and then you just try to stay on the tips of your toes with your right foot, and that just stretches out the back half of your upper right butt cheek there or whatever. And it depends on which side it's on too, because you could have it on the left or the right, but mine was always on the right. If you're taking your right hand and putting it on your back where it happens, but it's basically right. It was right at the hip level, or slightly above that. And, oh man, it was just so hard. But once you had that right spot that you were getting, you knew it, because your toes would tingle and would literally stretch out. But it does take a lot of time. You can't just do it for 5 minutes or whatever. And sometimes, at the Air Force Academy, one thing I tried to do with my own team too when I was the coach, we used to go through stretches every single day in practice as a team. So when you were going to touch your toes, your teammate would take your shoulders and push you towards the stretch.
Yep.
So you're not only doing it yourself, you're getting forced to do it to the extreme. And I've never stretched like that before. I did wrestling and all that shit in high school. Never stretched that way as a team. But I'll tell you, from that point on, I realized the value of stretching. It helped.
You got to be careful with that stuff, though. Everything I've read about yoga, get to 100%, then back off a little bit.
Yeah.
You just and coming out of the pose can be it's all new age and granola stuff, and it's really not. I mean, you got to be careful with it.
Yeah.
But DDP yoga, like I said, and I was doing it again a couple of years ago with my dad. It's great stuff, and he'll tell you on there, when you do his program, he has I bought him as DVDs, and each one he'll tell you okay, start with this one. It's called, and energy, and it's about 22 minutes. Then you move up to fat burner. Then you move up to this other one. You move to this other one. So for the first 2 videos, he has 2 people with him, and then one person doing like the modify. So like when you're doing the push-ups, this person will go down to their knees. Then the other person does the harder stances. Then when you get to the more complicated ones, like below the belt and diamond cutter and all them, he'll generally have 4 people, so you can kind of mimic one of the 4. So you can mimic the person that's doing like the easiest, positions, as then the next 2 ones up, which are a little bit more challenging, and then the one that's doing the full, almost professional, version of it. And he's big on like building strength, building balance. And he said when we interviewed him 10 or so years ago, part of the reason he started doing yoga was he was like, I was a guy that he said yoga to me. I was like, I don't do that pussy bullshit, Yeah. He's like, and then his wife's like, no, try this move. He goes, well, this stretch is great, but it'll be even better if you did like a resistance with it. And that's how he developed his what they call dynamic resistance. And he said he'd hurt his back. He blew out a couple discs, and he was wrestling at the time Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage. He was making a lot of money. And he goes, I can't go out and have surgery now. I'm making too much money. If I step out, right now, somebody else takes my spot. So, let me try these exercises. Let me try. And instead of, healing the discs in his back, he built the muscles around those discs to support those discs. So, like, a lot of times you'll read people that have, like, bad knees. Another wrestler, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels tore his ACL years ago, never had surgery.
Logan Paul now.
With no ACL.
Hurt his
so
knee.
Basically, he had no ACL. And then they said, like, well, you have no ACL. Your career is over. He's like, what do you mean? He goes, I was doing whatever, like, a couple months ago. They're like, no, you have no ACL. So he went to see one sports specialist, and the guy's like, you have no ACL, but if you build the muscles in your quadriceps and your calves and those, muscles that go down on the side of your knees, he's like, you will stabilize your legs strong enough that you can wrestle without that ligament in your knee.
Well then.
Someone made fun of me last week. I don't know if you guys saw the photos I sent you. I dressed up as, in the Thunderlips. Oh, yeah. And last year when I did it, I had like these, they were like they were a combination of like biker shorts and then shorts over top of them. They were like running shorts. And they were white and they came down to about my knees. But I said, you know what? I want to wear something close to the Hulk Hogan wrestling trunks. I didn't feel like buying actual wrestling trunks. So I bought a pair of sweatpants a size smaller than I'd wear. If I wear extra large, I bought a size large. And then I cut them in a way that they would kind of be cut like wrestling trunks. So now people are seeing like my legs, which normally when I wear shorts, they come down to my knees like basketball shorts. And my one old boxing teammate goes, yo, Quadzilla. Where's the secret squat room at? Jesus Christ, bro. And I'm like, I never noticed, that. He goes, but I'm like, over the years from having knee problems, I've done a lot of work to strengthen my legs. I walk a lot. You figure I average 6 to 8 miles walking a day, if not more. Sometimes 10 to 12. Jump rope, shadow boxing. You figure when I do a lot of bouncing, you're building up your calves, but you're building up your quads because you're doing a lot of that bouncing. You're bending your knees, and I guess my legs are more defined than I ever realized. And then also I was wearing compression socks.
Oh, there you go. And
they, I guess, did what they say they do. They compress all my calves. By compressing my calves, it made my quads look even bigger.
Yeah, it was a pretty snazzy outfit. Anyway, we had talked a little bit about leftovers. There was a couple of stories I forgot to mention last week. One, I don't know if it was this week or last week. Yeah, last Wednesday. Heavyweight Cain Velasquez from the UFC. There's a couple developments here. He has been given bail, $1 million bail. He's been behind bars 253 days, accused of shooting in a pickup truck, carrying the man who abused his son, sexually assaulted his 4-year-old son. And he was released on Tuesday on bail. He's got to do the GPS thing. But he's also, interestingly enough, required to go to outpatient treatment for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. a degenerative brain disease that could be caused by a history of concussions. And
Well, that'll be a good defense for him, maybe. To get out of this mess he's in.
well, it's an excellent defense, but I mean, temporary insanity would work as well if you can use that. But
Why not both?
yeah, but he's basically he actually says that diagnostic tests while he was in custody showed a traumatic brain injury and the possibility of CTE, even though he hasn't been formally diagnosed. And there was a guy, Dewerson, I think was his name. He was an NFL lineman or linebacker. And years ago, he shot himself in the chest in a domestic disturbance. And he specifically told police he wanted them to inspect his brain because he had CTE. So, I mean, that's the most crazy case I know of, but there's been other ones. Probably the biggest one, the worst brain, was obviously the wrestler Chris Benoit. Killed his whole family for us to have to find that out. But it's just got a direct causal link, CTE, to a lack of decision making and violent incidents like that. So I think this is a sign. This bail is a sign of the fact that Cain Velasquez not only has the public behind him, but he has an excellent case to get the whole thing dismissed. Or, temporary insanity and get treatment. I mean, he's already getting treatment. They've ordered him to get treatment, so I can't see how that's a bad sign. Except for him, is his health. It's a very bad sign for that. But, yeah, who knows? I mean, by the time he gets to trial, he'll be like, whoa, now I have dementia. I don't remember anything. No, they don't need his testimony anyway. They really is. But, yeah. One of those categories where, the guy that they're trying to arrest somebody for hurting probably deserved it. He definitely deserved it. But deserved worse, in most people's eyes. But, that is the justice system we have, and they have to go through the motions. But I got a good feeling for Cain on this one. He definitely seems to be getting some much needed reversal of direction with this, because for the longest time they wouldn't even give him bail. I don't know whether they thought he was a flight risk or what, but I don't know. This is if I was in that situation and I had that for an excuse, he molested my kid. Especially as somebody who's familiar with representing myself, I feel pretty good about going into that case. But yeah, it's this denying him bail and all that shit. It's obviously got to be very intimidating for him. But he's going home for a little while. We'll see. If it's a long while. I wouldn't be surprised if they just dropped the case before trial. But, I do think they have to kind of go through the motions. We had a couple fight cancellations worth mentioning. Last week I didn't mention this one either. Dan Hardy versus Diego Sanchez. We're supposed to have a boxing match. Hardy is saying he's unsure about any future comeback attempt. But he was supposed to box Diego in an exhibition bout last Saturday in Manchester, England. But basically, he said it was a contractual issue. Basically, the card was picked up by Sky Sports, and they decided that they wanted the Hatton Pereira fights off the card and to add all the rest of their own fights to it. So they basically took the Hatton Pereira fight and they canceled the rest of the fights. Speaking of which, Ricky Hatton looked pretty decent going into the Pereira fight. And I guess he looked pretty decent in the fight too. I don't know if you guys heard anything about that. Ricky Hatton's little comeback. And let me see, we'll get to that next here. We got a really good one coming up. I think you're gonna laugh very hard, like it's a comedy show, Tony, when you hear about Jake Paul's new idea to revolutionize the UFC.
Okay.
But Ricky returned to a very favorable crowd, 10 years beyond his final loss as a professional, fighting Marco Pereira.
It's been that long. It's been
8
10 years.
8 exhibition rounds against Pereira. 8. Yeah, 10 years. This is between his...
And I remember he had the loss to Mayweather. Then he had the loss to Pacquiao in 2009. But I remember he came back and he got knocked out. It was a body shot. I think he was winning that fight. I don't even remember his opponent. Wow.
Vyacheslav Senchenko. Yeah. Ended via 9th round KO defeat. We're going to test your boxing knowledge.
He was winning that fight. I remember that.
We're going to have to test your boxing knowledge a little bit more later when we do a very special segment based on an article I found today. And it's a Somebody's Always Gotta Go themed article. We're going to have to bring out the Rain Man of boxing. But this next story, you guys are both going to get a kick out of this, okay? Jake Paul has a plan, all right? Everybody calm down. Jake Paul has it all figured out. You know, he's going to save the world. Okay, don't believe the haters. Here we go. So Jake Paul has an idea. He wants to raise $50 million. And when he does, this will give the fighters of the UFC the opportunity to strike against Dana White. Do you believe it? You gonna give him some money to help him do this? So what? You gonna invest? You're on board, guys? What's your crystal ball say on that one?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to play up on this one.
I'll have to look at the financials. I'll look at the balance sheet, the
Trying to
assets,
raise money.
the debt level.
He thinks
It's our
$50
pattern.
million will do it. You know, that's all he needs. Just $50 million. And he believes that this will open the door for UFC fighters to get a collective bargaining agreement. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much crack you have to be smoking to be on board with that. He needs to call Hunter Biden for some fundraising on that one, because it's just pathetic. This is on a website called sportsnaut.com. sportsnaut.com. But this is a serious plan. He talked about it on his podcast. And he's basically, always talking about how he wants to go, make a fool out of Dana White. But this is beyond just asking for health care for every fighter, like, extra health care or whatever he's been pushing for. This is just ridiculous. He's pretending or promising that he's going to raise $50 million, and the fighters who are fighting check to check, we will fund them so they don't have to be obedient to the UFC. We will fund their salaries or their career earnings. How long is that going to last? For how many fighters? Like, how does this guy build this kind of career, make this kind of money, and say such stupid things? It makes no sense. $50 million? Okay? Well, look at PBC, okay? How did they start? They actually had to raid a financial institution to get that money through very shady means, but somehow they got away with it. Nobody got punished really that hard. But I mean, the guy that did it kind of was like the one that took the fall, the one that invested everybody's money, and it actually turned out to be a moneymaker. So, once like Showtime started buying the rights to the future cards, it was downhill from there. I mean, Al Heyman is no dipshit. Like, he knows how to make money. But I'm sure he has a bigger cache of money than for $50 million. Like, how many fighters are you going to get for how many fights out? Are you going to get like 5 of the UFC's best fighters for 10 fights maybe that you can support them till this thing gets done? And is the UFC really going to miss 5 fighters? I don't think so. Yeah. 50 million. It's not going to cut it. Sorry. And the crazy thing is, he says his advisor is like a guy that hooked up the deal to sell the UFC for $4 billion. I think I had more to do with that deal than that guy. If this is his plan, I mean, that just makes no sense. Ridiculous. So, I mean, I understand what his concept is. He wants to make MMA more like the other sports that have players' unions and all that, and players' associations, whatever you want to call it. But this guy is just out to lunch if he thinks it's going to be that easy. $50 million is a drop in the bucket. Because, I mean, I guarantee you try to do that, you're going to get sued. Where's your lawsuit budget? So, the legal budget alone will be $50 million. It'll take you 10 years to get out of it. So yeah, that's my soapbox of the week rant against Jake Paul. Fuck that guy. Like I said, I think what he's done is pretty impressive. No matter what kind of bums he's had to face to have that record, he's definitely generated a lot of interest. He's got a lot of eyeballs on the sport. He's made people a lot of money that are associated with the sport. But this whole pretend act that he's going to revolutionize fighting, and especially the fact that he's a boxer, he's not an MMA fighter, and he's promising all these things for these MMA fighters. And he doesn't have a single MMA fight. He's no better than Dana White in that regard. Except Dana White, I don't think he's ever even had a professional boxing match. I know he hasn't. So, it's just so hypocritical for him to go in and make all these promises about fighters' unions and then do absolutely nothing except talk about these pipe dreams that are never going to happen. It's conceptually impossible. It's just what he just shows his lack of understanding of how the whole system works. Why do you think the UFC gets these fighters into these contracts? Okay, number one answer is because it's lucrative. They pay these fighters more than they've ever been paid by any other organization, and they get them the height and the fame. Dana White always says it, we make millionaires, But what he neglects to say is those millionaires, they haven't got all their millions from us. They bring them to a level of fame, and then they start to get deals outside the UFC on other stuff that they can do with the UFC's permission, are not associated with UFC events. It's like, just like the NFL players who do the car commercials for the local dealerships and stuff. Just being associated with the NFL, you could do that stuff and you could get paid. So, I mean, these fighters are not going to give that up for a piece of Jake Paul's $50 million. No, that's not enough. Not enough, Jake. Think bigger. Think bigger. But anyway. The latest buzz on Jake is that he's going to be possibly fighting Tate, the British guy. I know he's got a British accent. I know he's actually British. But Andrew
Tate?
Yeah, the ex-kickboxer.
Well,
and I think he's had a few MMA fights.
He was a kickboxer.
Yeah. And they had a little bit of a stare down at an event, and all Tate was saying is, "You really want the smoke, huh?" And it's funny because not only is Andrew Tate, a avid former kickboxer, but he also is fond of the cigars. He really likes to smoke the cigars. So, I don't know if he was referring to cigar smoke or fight smoke, but probably the fight smoke. I don't know if it's actually going to get signed, but Tate is almost as controversial as Jake Paul, just because he does a lot of videos. He's been actually banned from a couple platforms recently. I forget which ones, but I think it was like Instagram and Facebook. They threw him off or something recently. He's got a very popular podcast. He's got money. That's the other thing. He has a lot of money. He's actually already put a challenge out, like I think over a year ago, to Jake Paul, asking him why doesn't he fight someone like him with some experience. But I don't know. I think it might happen now. It's looking like a good deal. So we'll see. Let's see the story I had. We had the Dan Hardy versus Diego Sanchez fight canceled, but Vitor Belfort was also supposed to fight Hasim Rahman Jr. And that fight has been changed to... Where is it? I got it here somewhere. Greg Hardy is stepping in now to fight Hasim Rahman Jr., who is another guy, like sort of like Jake Paul, who came from no boxing experience, no MMA experience, into going right into the UFC from NFL. And he didn't really put together a win streak like Jake Paul, but he strung together some good performances. Ended up losing his contract with the UFC. Now he's doing boxing. Misfits boxing, they're calling it.
Hey, Rich, have we heard anything about when the second triad event's going to happen?
With the triangle ring? That one?
Yeah.
No, actually, I haven't heard anything about that. I didn't even know there was going to be a second one.
Well, I wonder if that's... well, there was, and then it had to be canceled. I just haven't heard of anything that, if it's still on.
Right. And Tate's been banned from a few things, and we know that the big social platform being talked about more than any other one these days is Twitter, because of Elon Musk just buying it. And I know you're a country music fan, Tony, so you know the song Check Yes or No, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know who sings it, but
I
about
probably heard it.
about the little kids, in school, and the girl passes the boy the love note, and it says check yes or no, and the whole song's built around that, So apparently Elon Musk.
Yep, I'm looking at it right now.
Elon Musk sent out an email to all of his employees and told them, "Hey, listen, we're gonna change Twitter. It's gonna be everybody's gonna have to really work intensely, and if you're not on board, you'll get a 3-month severance package. But everybody who is, click yes." It just goes to show you. I mean, the guy has very little interpersonal relationship skills. But I don't know. I don't even know if that kind of thing is legal. That's what makes me wonder. Is it legal to be like, all right, guys, you're going to get hazed if you stay, but if you leave, we'll give you 3 months salary? I don't know. But, I mean, it's a private company, so I would kind of be surprised if he couldn't do something like that, but I guess he's doing it. But I only mentioned Twitter because Conor McGregor, it's been discovered, talks a lot about how his following is 6 million followers. But guess what? Elon Musk made a big stink about buying Twitter because Twitter would not tell him how many accounts were actually robots. So it comes to find out now, somebody did some research and found out that Conor McGregor's $9.6 million are completely half fake. Not completely, half fake. Half, exactly one half of them, basically, not exactly. Estimated 4,081,338 fake followers. 42.3%. 42.3. Gambling.com did this, okay, by way of a company called SparkToro.com. 4 million fake followers. Former UFC champion Anderson Silva pulled in second with 2,849,671 phony fans, as it says. Crazy. Let's see, this is all the fighters. Okay, John Jones, 40.3% fake followers. George St. Pierre, 41.5% fake followers. Nate Diaz, he's low on the totem pole here. It's 38.3%. Khabib, he's got 36.6% fake fans. Daniel Cormier, 37. Israel, he's got 34.4%. We're going to talk about him in a few minutes when we go over the UFC fights again. But Dustin Poirier, he's got 36.8% fake counts. Cody Garbrandt, 48.8%. That's the highest percentage. He's only got 361,000 followers, and 176,000 of them are fake. Yes. EJ Dillashaw, 48.1%. Yikes. Alright.
Oh, how's that Power Slap League coming along that Dana was going to start? Heard anything about that?
I've heard, the only thing I've heard is the outrage from doctors has been pretty pronounced. I'm not even joking. Like, because there's no defense whatsoever. You're not allowed to have defense. It's the only combat sport. You're not allowed to defend yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, compare that to X-Arm. You remember X-Arm?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's bad.
Oh, okay.
That's why they do it in Russia.
What a spectacle.
Yeah. I put a highlight. Tony probably saw it on Facebook one day of the X-Arm shit where they're like strapped in on fucking tethers to the ceiling.
Yeah.
In case they get knocked out and their hands are chained together. Get the fuck out
Yeah,
of here.
that was an Art Davie concept. I don't know what happened to it. It was only on one time. I didn't even get to see the standings or the rankings or anything. Then it just evaporated. That's been, over 10 years ago, I think.
Oh, they're still doing things like it.
What do you think the future of this slap stuff is?
Well, I mean, it's a
Power
popularized
Slap
thing.
League.
It's a popularized thing, and it's definitely, gone into the sport territory. People bet on it. It's legal to bet on it already. So that was kind of the first domino to fall, and now they're giving it legitimacy by attaching people like Dana White's name to it. So I don't know. What's his name? Our little former guest of ours there, Kenny Hewer, has been talking a little bit about it on his page, and he's very close personal friends with Dana White. Their kids have played against each other in football, so and Dana's his boss because he puts the cage together. So he's been talking a little bit about it, but not too many details so far. Just little hints. You can't wait for it. But yeah, I don't know if I'll be watching too much of that. Kind of makes me sick.
Yeah, and are they going to have judges? Are they going to have judges for those? A 10-point mark system?
I think it's like to the death, right? It's like to the knockout. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, come on.
It's not to the death, literally, but I mean, until the guy gets knocked out.
So someone just can't go anymore.
Or until someone breaks
like,
their
like
hand.
the first UFCs.
You know?
Yeah, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
To the death. You know, I won't even fuck with you guys. There is a story going around that I read. This is real. Somebody has developed, they have not used it yet, but a headset that you wear for video games that will kill you when you lose the game. Can you imagine that shit? Somebody has actually done it. Like, they put explosive charges like near the eye sockets, so that when the red screen comes up, game over, boom, your head explodes. Can you imagine somebody volunteering to do that?
I guess that's the Darwin Award. That would be the Darwin
man.
Award. There you go.
The guy said he hasn't had enough courage to try it yet. Wow, no shit. Yeah. And I did forget to mention as well, we lost a former guest of ours last week, Anthony Rumble Johnson. And it's kind of an unexpected development because as far as I knew, he was over his health challenges, and all he did was say that he had basically a health challenge and was able to keep it pretty fairly close to the vest in secret. No, there was no rumors that came out about what it was. I mean, once he said it, we wasn't going to disclose what it was. Nobody violated that trust if he did tell anybody what it was. But it finally came out exactly what he was dealing with. He had some kind of an immune disorder, and it ended up getting him infected with some kind of a rare lymphoma, and he died of complete organ failure due to that last week. But one of the indications that it was coming was one of his old managers had put out, you know, a big thanks to Bellator for taking care of him and asked for prayers for him. And he ended up dying, but just an incredible fighter, you know, great guy. I will never forget his interview number 1 because he told us for the first time, it kind of woke me up to the idea that, you know, this is no longer a sport that is built around jiu-jitsu or wrestling. It has become a striker-friendly sport. And he was the one that kind of hammered that home by telling me, like, you know, literally in this environment now in the sport, if you're excellent at takedown defense and you have your striking together, you can run through people, you know, and that is the fight style that people want to see. So the UFC is going to elevate you quicker if you fight that way. And he really got me thinking about that, you know, that whole put on a show thing. You know, it was just it was a long time ago. I think it was right before he left to go to Bellator. We had him on the show, and he was one of those guys that Ken Pavia hooked us up with, the former manager who happened to get on Dana White's bad side for sharing contracts with Bellator, because he represented guys in both leagues. So that was the end of his management business when that happened. But yeah, Rumble was a really decent guy, and there's not a single fighter out there that said a bad word about him, or had a bad thing to say about him. Not that anybody really gets people to publicly say bad things about him when they die, but unless you're a real asshole. It just goes to show you too the differences between a company like the UFC and a company like Bellator. They let him come back when he was dealing with this issue too. He had a fight in the tournament that they had, and then just dropped off the radar for a while. But while he was out of commission, not fighting, apparently Bellator and Scott Coker made sure that he was supported and taken care of financially through it all. So, I mean, that just goes above and beyond the traditional healthcare arrangement. And I don't know if he even had fights left on his contract with them. And they still did that. So, and he didn't even spend the bulk of his career with them. So, big props to them, and it just shows you like how a company is run that's actually being run by a guy who fought before and knows fighters. Not that he fought like on a big stage, but Scott Coker is a pretty tough dude. and a very good manager of fighters. He's been there a long time now. Knows what he's doing. But anyway, in addition to Adesanya versus Pereira, and the crazy knockout finish there, we had Weili Zhang proving the bookmakers correct. She was the heavy odds-on favorite to beat Carla Esparza, and what tipped my scales on this one was the UFC highlights they do, the lead-ins, 24/7 type documentary stuff they do for their preview shows, and
Embedded.
yes.
Embedded.
So Weili Zhang was training, I believe, in Thailand. So she was upping her Muay Thai skills there, and she was also working specifically with a couple of American wrestling coaches on her wrestling. And they showed her training regime, too, with the weightlifting. And then on top of that, I saw a viral video of her picking up Francis Ngannou. Little Weili Zhang just fucking throwing Ngannou over her shoulder. So I said, yeah, Carla can do all the wrestling practice she wants. She's not going to out-muscle Weili Zhang. And it turned out, yeah, I was right. So Weili Zhang won that one. Dustin Poirier, I thought, was going to have an easier job with Michael Chandler, but like we said, Michael was going to come out firing earlier, and he was going to be gunning for the knockout so hard, and it actually was kind of a lucky roll for Dustin Poirier, how he got his rear naked choke in this one, but it was mostly heart, and I really loved the quote from Dustin Poirier after the fight when he came flat up to told Michael Chandler flat out, "I was afraid to fight you." He admitted that to him. It takes a lot of guts to be able to say that, admit that to somebody, but it was a vicious one. A lot of back and forth before it ended in the third, 2 minutes in. My rear naked choke, and I think I picked Michael Chandler on only one of my lineup cards, and turned out I really screwed up because I picked a couple of the early fights and ended up badly for my picks. I had the Otman Izatar, who was undefeated. He got knocked out in the first round by a really low-priced Matt Steamroller Frivola at lightweight. Should have taken more stock in his last win, which was also by knockout. But he got an incredible knockout in the fifth fight of the night. So that really killed my chances. And I also had Negumereanu in the first fight on a few cards, and he looked way tougher than he turned out to be in this fight. Carlos Ulberg was, I think, only 6-1, and Nikolai was like 12 and something there, so I really did not expect the experience not to be able to help Nikolai, but he was just totally outclassed. He got knocked out in 3 minutes and 44 seconds. Second fight of the night, Montel Jackson beat Julio Arce by unanimous decision. And another one that was very hard to predict. I didn't have either one of the guys. I didn't think it was going to end up in knockout. Michael Trezano and Sung Woo Choi, they actually knocked each other down at one point. It was so back and forth. They both went on their asses. One of the exchanges early in the first round, and it didn't make it to the end. Just 9 seconds from the first bell, Michael got the knockout punch and finished it off with a couple ground and pound shots, and that was it. I did have the foresight to pick Carolina Kowalkiewicz, but she won by decision, so that wasn't enough points. And then Andre Petrosky was another one I picked. Also a unanimous decision finish, even though he was one of the heavier fighters on the card as middleweight. And he fought the butler, Wellington Turman. Looked like a pretty much outclassed guy in the whole fight, but just was durable enough to stay in there. And then one of my poorest picks was probably Molly McCann. Erin Blanchfield just totally dominated her got her in a submission eventually by Kimura. But she had her in all kinds of pretzel moves leading up to that. And she just totally used her strengths to negate all of Molly's best tools. And that was a tough one for her. And then Dominic Reyes, all his experience didn't matter against Ryan Spann because this is the first time he trained for a fight, he said. He's never trained for a fight before this. Something like, he said like 2 weeks before the fight, he used to start training in all his previous fights. And then, he puts in a full 6-week training camps and he knocks the guy out in a minute and 20 seconds. That was
Reyes never recovered from that bad decision against John Jones. Yeah. He never recovered from that. That was it. It must have unraveled him mentally. I mean, what a complete collapse. I hate to see that.
Yep, lost his mojo a little bit. Renato Carneiro at lightweight also got a very early finish over Brad Riddell. That was a rear naked choke. First round, 3 minutes and 20 seconds in. And then Dan Hooker, looking like he really needed a win to keep his mojo. I picked Claudio. I even picked Dan Hooker on my my underdog lineup in FanDuel. So that was a bad one. Claudio looked pretty foolish in there. He looked like a total one-trick pony. All he wanted to do was grab the leg and do the leg lock and get the submission from
those
leg lock.
Those takedown attempts were cringeworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was awful seeing that. It's like, my God, this is stuff I've seen at the local amateur nights. You can't bum rush someone's ankles. I mean, those days are gone.
Yeah. So he got TKO'd in the second by way of a body kick. And then my best pick of the night was Chris Gutierrez. I really did not like Frankie Edgar's chances going into this, especially where he announced beforehand that this was going to be his last fight. He had his whole family in the arena. He's at home, but Chris Gutierrez, like Tom always says, it's no cheap date. And he looked so put together, so disciplined, so technical in there. And Frankie just didn't have a shot at hell of winning that fight. Couldn't even get through the first 3 minutes. Barely got past the first 1 second after.
Yeah, that was ugly.
Flying knee knockout, and he was out. And, so out and frustrated that he had to be asked permission if he wanted to talk by Joe Rogan. But yeah, sad to see it go down that way for him. But excellent career, nothing to be ashamed about. It's just that he made that kind of Chuck Liddell mistake of trying to do one last fight way too late. Chuck might have been a little bit worse case than he was. Way too late. But Frankie, if you're gonna take a final fight, it'd be better if you did it like Nate Diaz. Get another legend of the sport that's been around as long as you have, with 40 fights or something, and most of them losses if you're lucky. I don't know. That's it. I think the UFC has handled these kind of things really badly over the years. I don't know. I think Frankie actually asked for Chris Gutierrez too, which makes it worse. But yeah, I think in some of these cases the UFC needs to overrule these guys and be like, listen, it made sense over here when we did it for Nate Diaz. We're going to do it for you. We're going to put you in against the guy that, is from your era. And even if you lose, it'd be kind of like a win-win situation. You went out against another guy that, you never fought maybe, but, was always in there. He was always in the division doing something. You just happened to never meet. Came up through the ranks together, something like that. It's just a better story to sell too, Instead of old guy gets clobbered by the new guy. I felt really bad for Frankie. That's a shitty way to go out. Put him there against like a fucking Clay Guida. I don't even know if he's the same weight class, but that would be more entertaining to me. Watching him get put out like that. So, UFC this weekend. I have not crunched my numbers, but I can tell you one fight I'm going to pick right off the bat. It's going to be the one right under the co-main event. First, we got Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak. I never know when to go against Derek Lewis and when to bet for him. So that one's I'm really going to have to look at Sergey's record a little bit more. But Derek is 26-10. Spivak just has 3 losses, but he's only got 15 wins to go with him. So, you know, I think Derek has fought the bigger names, but Spivak may be a little bit more technical. He's a little bit skinnier, and he's probably never told Joe Rogan after a win that he needed to go take a shit. Co-main event is Kennedy Nchekwu at light heavyweight. He's 10-3, fighting Iwan Kutalaba, who's 16-8-1. Don't let that record fool you. He's one of those guys, if he gets you in a jiu-jitsu situation, he's probably going to finish you. So he's always a deep threat there. Here's the one I'm going to pick outright. Chase Sherman against Waldo Cortez Acosta. And Chase just had his fight a couple cards ago canceled because his opponent had some kind of heart palpitations and backed out. And it was a much better matchup for him. This is not a good matchup. He is a plodding, roaming, very poorly defending striker. Doesn't have much wrestling. As far as jiu-jitsu, I'm sure he can submit people, but I don't think he's known for that. Waldo Cortez Acosta, he's 8-0. I think he's only had one UFC fight. I'm going to have to check on that. But he ended up pulling it out. He's undefeated. And I think he's going to win this one. Probably by knockout. He's known for his striking, too. Let's see. Yeah, Jared Vanderaa. He got a unanimous decision in his first contract fight with the UFC. Before that, he got on to the UFC through a contender series, Dana White's contender series bout with a TKO over another guy I never heard of. But yeah, Jared Vanderaa is also not really, super tough guy. Not highly ranked or anything, but got a little bit of experience. I like Chase. He actually he looks like a guy I've worked with before. He actually had some MMA experience, but he looks a little like Matt Damon too in his Sherdog picture. But anyway, yeah, I just don't see he's getting a shot here. Probably not. Anyway, Andre Fiallo at welterweight, 16-5, fighting Muslim Salikov, who's 18-3 in the 9th fight of the night. Jack Della Maddalena, 12-2 at welterweight, fighting Danny Roberts, who's 18-6. We got Charles Johnson, 11-3 at flyweight, fighting Zalgas Zumagulov, who's 14-7. In a female fight, Jennifer Maya, 19-9-1, fighting Marina Moroz, who's 11-3 at flyweight. Vince Morales, 11-6 at bantamweight, fighting Miles Jones, who's 12-2. The 4th fight of the night, Ricky Tercios, 11-3, fighting Kevin Natividad, who is 9-3. And another female fight, Vanessa Demopoulos, 8-4, fighting Maria Oliveira, 13-5. And we got Brady Highstand, 5-2 at bantamweight, fighting Fernando Garcia, 10-2. And first fight of the night is a female fight as well. Natalia Silva, 13-5-1 at flyweight, fighting Teresa Bleda, is 6-0. I hope you don't pronounce that Bleda. Bleda, B-L-E-D-A, 6-0. Hopefully she won't be bleeding. And we have last MMA contest to talk about here before we move to boxing for a minute. Bellator 288, we have Nemkov versus Anderson 2. Vadim Nemkov, he's 14-2, fighting Corey Anderson, 16-5. Former UFC Ultimate Fighter competitor, coming in against one of Bellator's best here. Second fight, and it's going to be a tough fight. Corey, he's just one of those really, really durable, tough fighters. He's got a lot of experience. But Vadim, on the other hand, he looks like he doesn't have an ounce of fat on his entire body. So, it's going to be, it's probably going to be a striking battle, I would say. We shall see on that one. Then we got one of the Pitbull brothers, Patricky, in the co-main event. He's 24-10 at lightweight, fighting undefeated Usman Nurmagomedov, who's 15-0. And we got Daniel Weichel, who I got 5 minutes with on the phone once, back in the day. 42-13 at featherweight, fighting Timur Kizriev, who is 11-0. So we got a couple of somebody's O's got to go possibly in the right column here. The televised portion of this one. We also have Terrell Fortune, who is 12-2 at heavyweight, fighting Daniel James, 13-6-1. That's a pretty good heavyweight fight for Bellator. So better than some of the UFC ones we've seen recently as far as matchmaking. We got welterweights Roman Feraldo, 8-0, and Levan Chokeli, who is 10-2. And Shafi Aliyev, also undefeated at 8-0 in middleweight, fighting Sean Connor Fallon, 16-7. Achilles Mota, 13-3 at lightweight, fighting Jairo Pacheco, who's 7-0. We got our Archie fight of the week, Archie Colgan. He's 5-0 at lightweight, fighting Jesse Hannum. Just 2-1. A light heavyweight fight before that, Sullivan Colley, 4-0, and Jay Raddick, who is 3-0. We got a fantastic female fighter's name. We're gonna get. Raddick reminded me of that, but you guys are gonna laugh. All right, we're not gonna go through all those preliminaries. Anybody ever heard of yet? All right, so we got all those stories done. We'll go to boxing. Okay, before we go through our records, we're gonna do our somebody's always gotta go story. Well, before we even do that, we're going to do Evander Holyfield and Mike Tyson have partnered up. I know I spoke about this before. Mike Tyson came up with these bites, the cannabis edibles, like gummies, and they're ear-shaped. And he's capitalizing, obviously, on the biting of Evander Holyfield's ear, right? So now, I don't know whether, Evander had to threaten a lawsuit or anything, but now they're partners in it, and they're calling them Holy Ears. I think they were calling them Mike Bites before, but now they're calling them Holy Ears. It's a whole new line. So that's awesome to see those guys being such good friends too. And of course, they had to wear their ugly Christmas sweaters to do the promo video to kick off the holiday season. Yeah, good stuff. And they're basically full-size ears with a piece bitten off. It looks like. In the corner. The real bite. Unbelievable. And it turns out it was Mike's wife that came up with the idea to make sure the two of them did it together. So, All right, so somebody's always got to go. You know, we talk about this every week. We always do the theme. And now this guy, Ken Hissner, from BoxingNews24.com, has put together this article. I'm just going to have to read the entire thing. And then I'm going to do the ring name quiz at the end before I read the last part. Okay, so you're going to love this, Tony, anyway, because it starts off with your boy. So I'm just going to read it. Ever since heavyweight champion Rocky Marciano retired in 1955 with a 49-0 record, the O has always stood out as many came close until Floyd Mayweather Jr. defeated MMA fighter Conor McGregor with no professional fights to go to 50-0 in 2017. Especially when two unbeaten boxers meet, you hear the O must go. So besides Mayweather, Rocky Marciano, and Joe Calzaghe, there were others who retired unbeaten but had draws, such as Packy McFarland, 70-0-5 out of Chicago, World Bantamweight Champion Jimmy Little Tiger Barry, who was 59-0-10 out of Chicago, Illinois, Mini and Light Flyweight Champion Ricardo Finito Lopez, who was 51-0-1 out of Mexico. Super Middleweight Champion Sven Phantom Aki, 34-0 out of Germany. Super Middleweight Champion Andre SOG Ward, who's 32-0 out of Oakland, California. Super Welterweight Champion Harry the Terminator Simon, 31-0 out of Nambia. Welterweight Champion Mihai Liu, 28-0 out of Romania, and Super Featherweight and Lightweight Champion Edwin El Inca Dinamita Valero, 27-0 out of Venezuela. Then we have WBO World Super Middleweight Champion Joe Pride of Wales Calzaghe, who retired at 46-0 with bad hands. Recently, our boy Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez got beat when he was 44-0. So, the other big one, 3-division world champion Julio J.C. Cesar Chavez, who was 89-0-1 when he first lost to Frankie Surgeon Randall. And then heavyweight champion, of course, Larry Easton Assassin Holmes was 48-0 when he lost to light heavyweight champion Michael Jinx Spinks. And then that was his nickname. I was looking for the super welterweight or middleweight. No, Super Brian Nielsen from Denmark was 49-0 when he lost to Dickie Ryan, WBO light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, they were like, oh, he's going to break it.
Yeah. WBO light heavyweight champion Darius Tiger Michalski was 48-0 out of Germany when he lost to Julio Cesar Gonzalez. Now, who is the boxer? I'm not going to read this part. I'm just going to give you the quiz. It's not the end of the article, but this is a good one to quiz you on. The boxer who has an O with the most wins right now. Currently.
Boxer with an O with the most wins right now.
Yes.
Well, it's not Zurdo Ramirez. He just got his O taken a few weeks ago. He was 44-0 going into it.
Fighting this weekend.
I wouldn't say it's Tyson Fury.
Fighting this weekend. That's the
fighting this weekend.
Getting. He's going to box, Rick.
No, I'm not going to boxing. I'm not cheating like that. I'm not going to boxing. No.
So his last name sounds like an Italian word, but it's not.
Fungal?
What?
Is it fungal?
No. You got part of it right.
The fun or the bull?
The UNG. You give up yet?
Yeah.
All right. Jamie Munguia is 40-0 right now, middleweight. So he's fighting
that's right.
this weekend.
That's right.
And Terrence Crawford is behind him at 38 now. So we haven't even got to the bad side yet. But this is the second half of the piece. Mexico's WBC World Featherweight Champion Ray Vargas is 36-0. WBC Middleweight Champion Jamal Charlo is 32-0. These are all currently fighting people. Former WBO Middleweight Champion Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade is 31-0. Argentina's Super Lightweight Jeremiah Ponce is 30-0. Under the 30 wins, you have Jerron Ennis, 29-0. And the most avoidable boxer in the game, Devin Haney, is obviously 29-0, looking at number 30. WBA, WBC, and IBF World Featherweight Champion Errol Spence is 28-0. And then WBO Intercontinental Super Lightweight Champion Arnold Barboza Jr. is 27-0. And Mexico's William Zepeda is 27-0. Now here comes the bad side. This guy also says he keeps a 100 loss list, which includes 100 loss list, even though there aren't any fighters here with 100 losses. But it also includes boxers with an O, including the following. So this is somebody's O's got to go the other way, but they didn't have their O go. Retired this way. Romania's Alexandru Manea was 0-54, retiring in 2013. The UK's Scott Hillman was 0-47, retiring in 2020. Hungary's Kalman Vagyaki was 0-45, retiring in 2017. A Hungarian named Zabilix Gergely was 0-43, retiring in 2012. Dominican Republic's Dionisio Rodriguez was 0-42, retiring in 2016. Slovakia's Victor Gelian, 0-42, retired in 2020. Dominican's Alexis Castillo, 0-40, retired in 2018. Still active are Romania's Gennady Baltic Bomber Kravensky, who is 0-42. And UK's Jake Pollard, who was 0-39. There's Jake Paul's next opponent, Jake Pollard. Jake versus Jake. Jake can go to 7-0 now, and then Pollard going 0-40. Okay, then you got a whole other category. Guys who never won but have drawn. We always talk about the guys that have these horrible opponent records, but you think about the guys they beat and you have to laugh. How about the guy that drew against these guys who have never won? Never won but have drawn are Zimbabwe and UK's Becky Tiger Moyo. He's 0-73-2. Ouch.
Wow.
UK's Curtis Gargano.
Two draws.
Two
draws.
Yeah.
Wow.
Curtis Gargano, 0-51-1. Romania's Marius Sorin, 0-48-2. Portugal's Carlos Roca Tomar, 0-48-1. This guy does not have the luck of the Irish, but he's from Ireland. Alec Baza, 0-47-3. Poland's Rafael Piotrowski, 0-46-1. Romania's Marian Benchu, 0-38-2. Mexico's German Aaron Kota, 0-36-3. Germany's Klaus Hein, 0-36-4. Slovakia Ambrose Horvath, he's 0-35-2. UK got another one. UK usually has a lot of opponents, but they don't have a lot of fighters on this list. And here's another one. Callum Ide. UK's Callum Ide. He's 0-35-2. He's still active. And UK's Carl Turney, also still active, is 0-35-1. So, then the final question. Is there anybody this guy missed? Tony, can you think of anybody? Cover a lot.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, check that out. It's boxing24news.com, I think it's called, the website. That was a good one. Okay, so I don't know if we'll have a Jesus fight of the week this week, but we got a. For some reason, there's one right on the front page here of Box Rec for tomorrow night. Miguel Angel Canedo got our Angel fight of the week. He is 15-19. I don't know why he's on the front page as a 2-star fight, but he's fighting Kevin Luis Munoz, who is 14-1. He's ranked number 72 to Miguel Angel Canedo's number 114 at bantamweight. It's a fight from Argentina. It's the only fight that rates as a 2-star fight. But yeah, I don't know why. The Angel fight of the week. Okay, also on Friday we got Bastian Ballesta. He is 24-0-1 fighting Samuel Gonzalez, who's 23-8. At super lightweight for the IBF International Super Lightweight title. Yeah, I believe that one's in France. Okay, also on Friday, got the EBU European middleweight title on the line between Matteo Signani, 31-6-3, and Anderson Prestop, who is 25-2. That one's from Italy. Probably just can't even legally have a fight in Italy without a guy named Vincenzo on the card. Vincenzo La Famiglia.
Right.
He is 11-0. That's super bantamweight fighting Hector Betancourt, who is 14-5. We got an Angel fight of the week and an Angela fight of the week. No, that one's really not that great. Okay, Friday. Where's the good one? Here's Saturday. Here's our somebody's O's got to go fight from France for the WBA Super World Cruiserweight title. Arsene Goulamirian. He is 26-0. I don't know how many knockouts. Fighting Alexei Igorov, who is 11-0. Cruiserweight. There's not a lot of title fights in France like this. This is a big card. Then we got almost somebody's always got to go. Kevin Lele Sadjo, who is 18-0, fighting Emre Kukor, who's 19-1-1 at super middleweight for the EBU European super middleweight title. That's pretty much the best stuff on that card. Alright. Carlos Molina also fighting in Mexico on Saturday in a pretty decent scrap. He's 38-12-2 fighting Ozil Santoyo, who is 13-2-1 at super welterweight. And here's the guy I was talking about, fighting on DAZN from Guadalajara, Mexico. Number 4 in the world at middleweight, Jamie Munguia, 40-0. Fighting Gonzalo Gaston Correa, who is 21-5. And then here's another Angel fight of the week. This guy's probably a better Angel as far as record goes. But he, unfortunately, it's one of those names that cancels out my saying here about 4 named Latin people. One of them's usually Jesus. This guy, one of them's Angel. Jose Angel Garcia Rodriguez. How about that one? 8-0 with 2 draws, fighting Benito Sanchez Garcia, who is 16-6-2. Keeping it in the Garcia family, just in case. Those are good Mexican fans down there. Benito Sanchez Garcia and Jose Angel Garcia Rodriguez. It's brother versus brother-in-law. I don't know how that works, but yeah. Well, it'll be an interesting one. But the main event, Correa versus Munguia. And then we have a good one at super flyweight, Eric Omar Lopez, 16-6-2, fighting Argy Cortez, who's 23-3-2. And boy, this is a crazy female fight. Marilyn Badillo Amaya, 12-0-1, fighting Mayela Perez, who is 19-23 with 4 draws. Somehow they thought that one was good to mention. then there's just one here listed on USA Fight Network, FITE Network, from Puerto Rico. Jean Carlos Torres, 20 wins, 1 loss, fighting Cesar Rene Cuenca, who is 48-4 at welterweight. We got some Russian fights. We're gonna boycott those because fuck Russia. United Kingdom has some stuff going on. One of our former guests is actually fighting as well in Rhode Island. But United Kingdom, there's one here for a couple titles. You got Liam Davies, who's undefeated at 12-0, fighting Ionut Beluda, who is 15-3. For the EBU European Super Bantamweight title and the WBC International Super Bantamweight title. And our former guest here is fighting at the Twin River Event Center, Lincoln, Rhode Island. Toka Khan Clary. We had him on back in the day, one of our Dennis Maurice connections there. He knew Larry Army, who was managing him at the time. I don't think he's managing him anymore. But Toka Khan Clary. He's only got the 3 losses to go with 28 wins. Fighting a little bit more experienced guy, Jonathan Oquendo Arnaldi, who was 31-7 going in at super featherweight. And that's the only fight they've got on the card that's more than a 2-star fight, so they consider that one a 3-star fight. Trek. That should be a good one. That's really it until next Tuesday. When the guy doesn't have 4 names, but his last name is Booth, like John Wilkes Booth. But this guy's first name is Clarence. Clarence Booth, 21-5 at super lightweight, fighting Myquan Williams, who's 18-0-1 in Manhattan. That's next Tuesday. And then we got Stephen Shaw, 17-0, and Rydell Booker on the same card at heavyweight. Booker is 26-6-1. Stephen Shaw undefeated, 17-0. We got some fights Wednesday in Sydney, Australia. Australian welterweight title on the line. Joel Taylor, 8-0 at welterweight. Ty Telford, 8-1 in the main event. We got Michael Zarafa, number 7 in the world at middleweight. 30-4 is his record, fighting Danilo Creati, who is 8-0. That's about it. Till next week for the upcomings. So we gotta go to the recaps. Okay, so we're talking about Montana Love versus Steve Spark. Both of them have great wrestling names. Already. Come on. But yeah, that was the Cleveland action. In the co-main event, we had Richardson Hitchens, retired Yomar Alamo in the 8th round of a 10-rounder for the IBF North American Super Lightweight title. Then we had Raymond Ford before that, knocked out Sakaria Lucas. Raymond stays undefeated, goes to 13-0 with 1 draw. Sakaria takes his 2nd loss to go with 25 wins and 1 draw. That one was for title 2, WBA Continental America's featherweight title. And then Christian Tapia, I don't know if he's related to Johnny Tapia, but he was 15-0. Now he's 15-1, lost by unanimous decision to Thomas Matisse. That's his 20th win to go with 3 losses and 1 draw, and that was for another Continental America Super Featherweight title, the WBC version. And then Raynell Williams, 13-1, got a unanimous decision over Raizimian Ford. I don't know if he's related to Raymond Ford. Same card, but Raizimian is 8-3 now. He was down in round 1. Super Featherweight bout. Okay. Also Saturday we had some big fights in the UK, Manchester area. Dalton Smith in 12-rounder in the main event. Stayed undefeated, moves to 13-0. And Casey Benjamin was his victim. Falls to 16-2-1 at super lightweight. And Dalton gets the BFC British super lightweight title. Tyler Denny in the co-main at 10-rounder against Bradley Rea. Both of them had 14 wins going in. Tyler Denny ended up with 15 on the other end. Bradley Rea was undefeated at 14-0 going in. So he ended up losing his first fight. And the winner, who won by unanimous decision, won even though he got a point taken away for holding in the 9th round. He had 2 losses going in, too. 2 losses and 3 draws. Gets his 15th win. And then the big upset of the night, I guess, belongs to Natasha Jones, who was 12-2-1 going in, but she won a unanimous decision against Marie-Eve Decaire, who was 18-1 at super welterweight, and 3 titles are now going to Natasha Jones: IBF, WBC, and WBO World Super Welterweight titles. So that was a good one. Fraser Clark, also on undercard, stays undefeated with a points win against Kamil Sokolowski. Well, that's a tough loss record. 11-27 now with 3 draws at heavyweight. Fraser Clark. That's a good name. Frazer. And then the Bentley got smashed up a little bit in Vegas at the Palms Casino. Zanabek Alan Canuli. Again, 13-0. There's a lot of fighters that got to 13-0 this last weekend. He won a unanimous decision against Denzel Bentley. Falls to 17-2-1. And the WBO World Middleweight title goes to Zanabek. And then WBA World Minimum Weight title was on the line in the co-main event there. A 10-rounder. And it was a female fight. Female minimum weight title. Do you think that fight ended in a knockout? No. 10-rounder. And the undefeated fighter stayed undefeated. Sinisa Estrada goes to 23-0 with a unanimous decision win over Jasmine Gala Villarino, who was only 6-1-2 going in. 6-2 now, but 6-1-2 against 22-0 sounds like a mismatch of the week to me. It's a bad one. We also had a TKO in one of the earlier fights at lightweight. Miguel Contreras went down in the 6th, falls to 12-2-1. And Raymond Muratalla stays undefeated, goes to 16-0 there. Cleveland. Going back to last Friday. Let's see if we have anything good then. Nothing spectacular. Well, there's our Jesus fight of the week last Friday. For the WBC Silver Featherweight title, Rubio was down 3 times. Nick was on the ball. Nick Ball in York Hall, Bethnal Green in the UK. He improves to 17-0. Jesus Ramirez Rubio took his second loss. He had a promising record going in, 21, still does, 21-1-3 going in. Now he's 21-2-3 at featherweight. And lost his opportunity for the silver featherweight title. Jesus couldn't pull the miracle off. We also had a good one last Friday in Sheffield. Sonny Edwards also stays undefeated with a unanimous decision win over Felix Alvarado. That one was for the IBF World Flyweight title. Sonny 19-0 now. Felix Alvarado 38-3. And then Thomas Samba on the undercard lost a split decision to Marcel Braithwaite. 13-3 going in, now 14-3. Braithwaite actually failed to make weight and was ineligible for the final eliminator for the British title in this one. But he did get the win over Thomas Asamba, who was 11-7 going in. 7-11 backwards. One draw. Now he's 11-8. Okay. So then we had another somebody's who's got to go fight on that card in Sheffield Arena. Jack Bateson lost by TKO in the final round to Shabazz Massoud. 10-0. Bateson was 17-0 going in. That one was for a title. WBA Intercontinental Super Bantamweight. Yeah, before the final knockdown, he was down twice in the 12th. That's it. That's it until next week. I think I covered every single story I could possibly cover.
Rich, next Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Yes, it is. So let's take the week off. 2 weeks from now. I did start re-updating Fight News Unlimited, so I'm going to try to keep up on that at least every 2 days, get new stuff on there. And maybe with some of my down days during the Thanksgiving week, I might even get some new stuff on paythefighters.com. Do some stuff with that, because this Jake Paul shit is really pissing me off. $50 million. Who the hell does he think he is? First of all, if you don't have that in your back pocket as just a down payment on this plan, like, it's stupid to even go out there and say that you're raising it. Like, where are you raising it from? FTX? Get out of here. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Guys, keep smiling, bud.
So, alright. Well, we'll try to remember all these fights from this weekend for 2 weeks from now. And enjoy the vacation and happy Thanksgiving.
All right, guys.
Enjoy the fights. Happy Thanksgiving.
If it was legal to send you guys alcohol,
Happy
I'd
Thanksgiving,
send you some of my
everybody.
Applejack. Homemade. Alright. Till next time.